meeting to order today. Thank you all for being here. I will hand it over to Danielle for the opening script.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us in this hybrid meeting format. Just a quick housekeeping note. Let me just actually make sure we have. Yes. Hi, Courtney. Okay. Just a quick housekeeping note before we begin. For the members of the public who are joining the meeting via computer, please be advised that you have been muted. Commissioners, as a panelist who are joining virtually, you are able to mute and unmute your video at your own discretion, but please mute yourself when you are not speaking. If you are here and wish to participate during the public comment portion of the meeting and haven't already done so, please raise your virtual hand now. And the speaker queue will be those who are here in person, followed by those who are joining virtually. And lastly, in accordance with HB 4212, this meeting will be recorded and posted to the Sustainability Commission website. As always, please feel free to contact the Sustainability Commission if there's testimony you were not able to provide or wish to get to us in a different format. And with that, I turn it back over to Mitra.
Thank you. Are we okay here? Wait, let's go. I just want to make sure we're everyone heard that. I'll start the land acknowledgement unless we need to redo that. I think we can move on. Okay. Okay. Emily has prepared the acknowledgement.
Yes, I have quite a few things to share. I'll try to keep it brief. So in preparing for the land acknowledgement, I did some looking around current events and happenings in Oregon as it related to our indigenous tribes. On display in March at the Cha'Chalu Tribal Museum and Cultural Center is an immersive exhibit called Coyote and One-Legged Man. February 19th, tomorrow, the Environmental Learning Center at the Clackamas Community College is hosting a free virtual workshop titled Indigenous Partnerships and Restoration, featuring a speaker from the Confederated Tribes of Grand Ronde. The Two Cultures, One Community powwow is coming up in February 27th through March 1st, and that is an annual powwow at the Pendleton Convention Center, which will celebrate unity through traditional dancing, singing, drumming, and everyone is invited to participate. And then a little bit closer to home here in Lane County, I thought this was really neat. The upcoming Florence Rhododendron Festival, which happens every year in May. This year, the Confederated Tribes of Coos, Lower Umpqua, and Siuslaw Indians will be serving as the Grand Marshal of the parade, and they were engaged to create this year's festival theme, which I will not try to pronounce, but it means a gathering with a good heart. And a tribal artist created the logo for the festival this year. And again, it's going to be the Grand Marshal of the parade. So that was really exciting.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yeah. And just for clarification, the commission has chosen to focus on more engaging, thanks to Laura's model that just started when you were chair, I believe. Kind of some engaging, experiential, kind of little bit more depth into, actionable things that you can do to learn about our indigenous tribes around here. That's what that is. Thank you so much, Emily. Thank you, Courtney. Thank you. I don't know if you're here last month, but thank you for preparing that last month. Sorry. Very much appreciated that. And up next month for March, we have Chris scheduled. Chris is not here. No. April, Jan, or is it?
Yeah, that's Jan.
Sorry. And then May and June, we're still looking for volunteers, if anyone is willing to do a little research and bring. Well, thank you, Laura. Did you want to do
Either one, whatever, whether it's full.
anyone else would like to volunteer for either May or June?
I'm happy to take one. Either one is fine.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much.
Which one do you guys want to do?
Anyway, I'll do
Okay.
two. Great.
Excellent, thank you very much. And I know there's a spot to welcome.
That'll come later.
Okay.
Let's do.
I'm just talking to you, so I want to welcome you now.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. Okay, so next we have the, do we have a motion to review and approve our January meeting minutes?
Motion to approve?
All in favor? And we have an abstention because you weren't here. And do we have, I would like to bring one small change to our agenda today. Do I do that before we move to approve it?
Yeah, make the
Okay.
changes.
So there was a mistake in the time as was listed here, in under 8, it jumps from 6:50 back to 6:45. We're not experiencing time travel. That's supposed to be, I think, 6:55 and likely may need an extension of that. We'll also be posing some questions during the committee updates for one of our committees to the group. So just expecting potentially some extension of the meeting. And with that, is there any other edits or suggestions for the agenda? Do we have a motion to approve that with those changes?
So move.
Jane,
Second.
all in favor? Excellent. All right. Thank you all very much. And then we'll go over to public comment on our topic, and we have, are you wanting to comment?
Two people.
2 people?
So we've got 2 people, plus I have 1 to read.
Boas.
Oh, you have the list.
Karen Hall is first.
Ian, do you wanna explain the process? Well, so there's a 2-minute thing and you'll stop them.
Yeah, so we speakers get 2 minutes and I'll give you your notice as you approach the topic.
Okay,
That's
great. Wonderful. I
You
guess
can
I'll
come sit here. Okay.
please.
Thank you.
Yes. Thank you all, one, for listening, in the past, and thanking you. Good evening, my name is Karen Hall, I'm a resident of the Bethel area. I'm also an environmental conservation professional with PhD in plant physiology, and 2 decades of working in habitat and environmental education in Oregon, Texas, and North and South Carolina, so I've been around a little bit. I wanted to raise something that I think is missing from the triple bottom line analysis presented tonight. And that's that the project was never, that I can see, evaluated against Eugene's own climate action plan. The CAP's biggest challenge is transportation emissions, over 52% of Eugene's total. And the city's currently 39% short of the 2030 fossil fuel reduction goal. The TBL itself documents that artificial turf fields will generate nearly 3 times the annual vehicle trips of natural grass, roughly 265,000 cars per year versus 93,000. That's celebrated in the report as an economic benefit, but it's also significant transportation emissions liability, and it wasn't reconciled with the CAP. I'd ask this committee to formally recommend that analysis before construction is actually approved, and maybe that you've already done that, I'm not aware. The second issue is cumulative air quality burden in the Bethel neighborhood. West Eugene already accounts for about 96% of toxic emissions in the city. That's well-documented environmental justice concern. The Amazon distribution facility is now confirmed for the Highway 99 corridor, and it will add 2,600 field vehicle trips per day for the airshed, even though they're slated to produce, electric cars by 2030 is my memory. Adding a major sports complex on top of that in the same neighborhood without a cumulative quality analysis is not a small decision. And the 2 projects together represent compounding environmental harm to a community that already bears a disproportionate share of the harm. I'm not asking the commission to stop the park. I'm asking for two things: a formal cap alignment review for phase one funding and a cumulative air quality analysis that accounts for the Amazon facility alongside sports complex traffic, because I think Bethel deserves this rigor. Thank you.
In general, I say we.
Yeah, I didn't have like really separate comments, you know, about anything. I was here for the TVL analysis presentation. Now,
Okay, great.
great,
Thank
thank you.
Well, it's online, so there's no-
Oh, okay, that worked. Okay. And then there was one comment that came in via email since the last month. So this was a message from David Vanderhagen, with Northwest Natural, and his message says, "Good day. As our mild winter progresses in the Northwest, I wanted to share some of the interesting regional coverage about our energy systems, infrastructure, and capacity. According to outgoing Chief Executive and Administrator of the Bonneville Power Administration and incoming eWeb General Manager John Hairston, utilities and grid planners have not kept up with the broad changes taking place in the industry. If providers fail to act with urgency, there will be dramatic adverse impacts. But doing so will require everything from regulatory and land use approvals to navigating routine public opposition to new transmission lines, not to mention the volume and cost of the projects themselves." He includes a link to an article called "Western States Need 60 billion investment in new transmission lines by 2035 to avoid major reliability problems." His message continues. Last year, the Pacific Northwest Utilities Conference Committee commissioned a work group and neutral third-party contractor to execute a third-party analysis of regional energy. Data center growth, weather uncertainties, peak demand, and renewable additions will all play a role in our region's ability to meet capacity needs in the future. The report, literature review, and key findings are linked here. Recently, leadership from our state and region's energy providers met to analyze our energy system's ongoing stress and work to collaborate on next steps moving forward into the next decade. I encourage you to watch the video linked below for a summary. As conversations regarding electrification and decarbonization move forward, it is important to remember the impact utility providers and the communities we all share will experience if we do not zoom out and analyze the critically needed broad changes that must materialize to ensure safety, reliability, and resilience. Energy system integration and diversification are widely acknowledged as responsible solutions to load growth in the future. I hope you will consider this information as you execute your work plan and move your efforts forward to elected officials. Please let me know if you have any questions. David.
Okay. All right, does commissioners have any responses? Oh, Laura?
I just wanted to thank Karen for coming and sharing that with us. I also have a lot of questions about the report, which I'm looking forward to talking about.
I'll echo the appreciation, well crafted, detailed comments, appreciate. Perhaps it's really nice to have public comment in this meeting because we don't always, and it's nice to hear from people. And also acknowledging David's letter. That is an interesting report. It's pretty technical. I have been digging into it and doodling on it. And I'm happy to chat with folks one-on-one if you're interested in those detailed issues about our electricity and gas grids in the Northwest.
Thank you. Any other commissioner comments? Thank you for sharing those comments and thank you for the response. Now we can welcome our new sustainability commissioner, Meredith Tubbs. We hand over.
Yeah, if you just want to say a few words about yourself and.
Yeah, sure. I'm Meredith Tubbs. I'm really excited to be here as a sustainability commissioner. I have done a lot of different nonprofit work in Eugene, and I've been here for quite a while. Currently, I'm a garden coordinator and educator at the Relief Nursery and the coalition coordinator for Fossil Free Eugene. So I do wear a few different hats. On the sustainability front, I'm also really passionate about permaculture and food systems and how we share this planet and these ecosystems with other living beings. And I think that there's, just so much exciting things that we can do to make our communities more resilient and just a wonderful place for us to be and our neighbors, human and non-human.
Thank you.
Welcome, it's nice to have you.
No, welcome. Thanks for joining.
Very excited to have you. Thank you for being here. Yes, we're ready for the presentation. All right, we're ready for the presentation. Chugging right along.
That's us.
Thank you.
Danielle said I could stay,
Okay.
since I wasn't presenting.
Okay.
Point if I wasn't, it's up to you, 2 or 3, however you want to do it. Okay, so I'll just provide a quick introduction. So the city has spent the last 15 months analyzing options for sports field surfacing for the proposed sports complex at Golden Gardens Park. In November 2024, the commission provided input to staff on elements to consider in that TBL analysis to evaluate the environmental, social, and economic impacts and benefits of different surfacing options. And so tonight at this meeting, the commission will have the opportunity to ask questions about the recently completed TBL and the final field surfacing determination.
Hey. Good way. Hi everyone, my name is Carolyn Berg. I am the Parks and Natural Resource Planning Manager for the city of Eugene. Here with me is Tracy Lunsford, representing our consultants on parametrics. And just so you know, also in the room, we have Laurel Mathieson, who is our Recreation Athletics Programming Supervisor, and Peter Chabon, who is our Recreation Services Director. As Danielle said, we're here. We've been working for the last 15 months on this analysis, and we're happy to be here to discuss it with you tonight. We saw you in November of 2024 when we received input from you about what we should be considering in this report, and you will see that information once we get into it. So our plan for this evening is to start off with a little project background, just because not everybody knows the background of Golden Gardens Park and our planning process. And then we'll get into the triple bottom line analysis, the results. We'll talk a little bit about the decision that we made as staff regarding surfacing, talk about next steps, and then we hope to leave time for lots of time for questions. It is dense material, and so I do ask that maybe we hold our questions till the end so we can be most efficient with our time. So just to kind of kick us off and ground us in the project here that we're talking about 3 years ago, we started a concept planning process for this large park. We knew from the outset that we were trying to accommodate 3 different uses on the site: a sports complex, a large protected natural area, and a neighborhood park to serve immediate residents. And so throughout that concept planning process and all of our engagement with the community, we were really striving to find the right balance between developed amenities with natural resource values, as well as balancing neighborhood considerations with those of the broader community need, specifically around recreation and economic development. A few words about why a sports complex, because for people that don't live in that world, it isn't obvious. But we know that access to recreation is very important for youth and adults alike. For youth in particular, various studies, including those from the National Recreation and Parks Association, show that when children play sports, They increase their chances to grow up healthy, to feel good about themselves, to build friendships, to develop skills like teamwork and respect, and they're more likely to succeed in school and in their future careers. We also believe that by having this facility located in Bethel, it will benefit Bethel kids because they will have better access to high quality recreation fields. These are fields they can walk to, they can ride their bikes to, and not always have to be driven across town to South Eugene. We have known in this community, in Parks and Recreation for a decade, or really probably more like 2 decades, that we have an inadequate number of sports fields in this community to serve our population. We commissioned a study in 2016 to learn more about that need. And that market analysis was done, and it did show indeed that by building a facility like this, we would significantly increase the amount of participation that we have in local league play for soccer and baseball and softball and other sports. That analysis also showed that by creating a facility that could attract regional sports tournaments, that it could be sustainable from an economic standpoint, where we would be able to bring in revenue to operate the facility and have broader economic benefits to the community through people coming to stay in our hotels or eat dinner out and things like that. Now we do know that 2016 data is getting a little dated, and so we actually have recently kind of recommissioned a market analysis to make sure that those assumptions are still good, and that work is underway. So talking about the site, Golden Gardens is really well suited to this sports complex, in large part because of its size. This is a huge site. It's 223 acres. It is a second in size only to Alton Baker Park for a park of this type in Eugene. When you go out there, you just kind of see the ponds right now. And there's a lot of fallow farmland kind of around it that you don't kind of recognize is part of the park, but it's a big space. It's also relatively flat. It has access from local highways and arterial streets. It's inside the urban growth boundary, and so it's anticipated for urban development. There is no other parkland that we currently own in Eugene that could accommodate this. And we also know that there are concerns about the existing natural resource values on the site and the turtles and the other wildlife that live there. But we think that we developed a plan that can really accommodate all of these uses and mitigate those impacts. So for a quick overview of this plan, over on the left-hand side of the screen, which is the west side of the park, would be the soccer field complex. So that would be 6 full-size soccer fields with a 1,000-foot buffer between the fields and the edge of the ponds. On the east side of the complex or of the park is the softball, baseball fields, 8 fields total, with a buffer of 300 to 400 feet from the edge of the ponds. Overall, of the 223 acre site, 168 acres are protected or enhanced as natural resource areas, with a 26 acre habitat preserve, which is immediately to the west of the ponds. That will have restricted access, keeping dogs and people out of that area because that's the most sensitive habitat on the site for the pond turtle. That's where they do most of their nesting. So, so I'm not going to go too much further into that because we've got a lot to cover, but can answer more questions if they come up. Next, I wanted to talk about phasing. This is a really big project and it will not be done in one fell swoop. It will be phased in over time. And our best guess at this point is that phase 1 would include access into the site, either from Clear Lake to the north or from Terry Street to the west. It would include some number of rectangle sports fields, soccer fields. We're hoping a minimum of 3, potentially more. and then the parking to accommodate those fields. And then importantly, also, developing out that, buffer and preserve area, to the west of the ponds. So that's, you know, installing fencing, relocating the trail, doing grading and berming and planting to create a visual, buffer from between the more active sites and the natural resource. We want to put those mitigation measures in place before we increase activity on the site. So that's all part of phase one. So that phase one is really what our decision applies to. And so, is our, you know, staff have made a decision based on this analysis, that, we think going with artificial turf without infill is the best way to move forward. This is I forgot to bring it over, but this product is a fairly new technology. And what makes it different is that it doesn't require any kind of infill. And so that kind of eliminates the need for the crumb rubber, which is part of the problematic aspects of our artificial turf. And I have a sample of it, if Peter, would you mind? So I can just pass it around and just feel it. You can tell that it's kind of thick, and it just doesn't require the extra cushioning of an infill product. So the reason why that has been our choice is a lot of it comes down to playable hours. And so this analysis shows that artificial turf is really the only surfacing option we have in our climate that can make a sports complex of this size viable, both for the recreation need and for the economic operational standpoint. Grass fields can only support about 1/3 of the usage that artificial turf can support. And that does not meet our current recreational needs or create a sustainable operating model for us. We are encouraged that there are these new products out there. The industry is trying to catch up and do better. So we are committed to using the lowest impact artificial turf options that are out there. And we think at this point, this is the one. I wanted to share this before we share the analysis, so you can just be thinking about that as we learn more about the analysis. And now I'm going to turn it over to Tracy, who will walk us through.
Thanks, Carolyn.
Yeah.
Again, I'm with Parametrics, and we provided the triple bottom line analysis for this study. We were not part of the decision making, and our role was really to provide analysis to support staff. So we took a triple bottom line approach. Triple bottom line is an approach that looks at the relevant social, environmental, and economic considerations, and helps with option analysis, because we can put the information side by side for each of the options so that you can start to determine which ones are really key differentiators, and where some of those impacts are going to be that you can balance your decision making with. And it's a great tool for increasing transparency in decision making. Of course, it has the social, environmental, and economic branches. And we did a lot of work to develop the framework overall. We engaged several sources to identify key considerations, and information that we gathered from these sources here helped identify elements to evaluate in the TBL analysis, including input from this group, and also that you provided from community input. We also talked to staff and other interested parties to see what we should be looking into for our triple bottom line analysis. We did want to highlight the information the input from this group that we incorporated into the analysis. So some of the key interests that we heard from this group would include those that you see on the screen here: equity, the presence of contaminants injury risks, heat island, water consumption, climate impacts, and then impacts to landfill based on disposal at the end of the useful life. So all of those were incorporated into the analysis. And then we also did get some resources from this group here, including letters that had already been submitted to the commission, research that you had shared, and then also some information related to LCC's decision in the past. So we incorporated all of that as well. And the 4 options that we considered were highly engineered natural grass. And this is an grass option that is beyond the standard of the existing grass fields that the city operates. So it would be a much more highly engineered option that would provide better playability. And then we had 3 artificial turf options. We had one with crumb rubber infill because that is typically the industry standard and very common. We also included a product with natural infill, and that's from recovered olive pits. And then this final option without infill. So we evaluate each of them independently. And then we did collect information from a plethora of sources. Where possible, we got our information from academic and scientific research. And then we filled in information from people's experience, city operators and maintenance records. We contacted other operators of fields. We looked at documents produced by advocacy organizations and government agencies, different news articles, resources received from the public, and then also vendor data. So we always tried to err toward the most independent information available, and then filled in gaps where we had information. So now let's get to the framework and the findings. Remembering that the 3 branches are social, environmental, and economics, so we'll go through each one individually to highlight some of those key findings. In the social branch, we included analysis of categories like active recreation, access to high quality recreation, safety, and nuisances. And some of the key differentiators in this area are highlighted and bolded there. So those are health and happiness, neighbor access, heat, and toxics. So those are the ones that we're going to cover here. There's a whole lot of information in the report. And so we've just chosen some of the key differentiators to highlight in this meeting here. And one of those is playable hours. It's a direct indicator of access to high quality recreation, health, and happiness, and it also underlies other categories that we analyzed. And so I'm going to spend a little bit of time here walking through how we actually calculated the playable hours. We started with maximum hours based on an open and closed time for 365 hours or 365 days a year, and that gives us the top number that you see there. And then we reduced those playable hours by things that would require the fields to be out of use. So we considered the wet season closure for natural grass. So this is time that it would not be feasible to be playing on grass fields due to the wet weather. And of course, that is an impact exclusive to natural grass, and artificial turf does not have that impact. We also considered all of the maintenance activities. And of course, if you are mowing the grass, you can't be using it. If you're leaf blowing or grooming artificial turf, you can't be using the field. And so those hours are removed. There's a bit more time spent on maintaining natural grass fields than there is on artificial turf options. And I will highlight that for the most part, artificial turf options are pretty well aligned in here. And so this is mostly a natural grass and artificial turf in general, all 3 options. We also considered unplayable hours due to extreme heat. So we looked at the number of days that we expect this area to be in high heat zones where that would impact the field performance and playability. And that was primarily an impact that we saw with artificial turf where natural grass was not impacted by those reductions. And that gave us the really the technical hours, but we also wanted to consider how many hours would just really not be likely to be used because people are going to be at work or in school. So there wouldn't be a lot of demand for the fields at those times. So those are the hours due to work and school, and we reduced those. You can see that there are more reductions on the artificial turf side because the school hours correspond with the wet season, and so there wouldn't be as many reductions there. They've already been taken out. So when we combine all of those things, all of the different reasons why the fields would not be able to be used, we get the expected or practical playable hours for the fields. So this is a term that you'll see throughout the report and that we've based our analysis on. And the end result is that natural grass provides about a third as much of the playable time as artificial turf. So artificial turf provides 3 times as many hours for recreation.
Can I ask a quick clarifying question? So in the winter, because it's like 7 a.m. to 11 p.m. or something, you're assuming people would be playing on turf in the dark, cold winter months? Because they could be, that goes into all this. They're not in school, it's like 10 p.m.
Yeah, they would be using lights, but those are available hours. Okay, so that's kind of the underpinning of the practical playable hours that we included here. Reiterating Carolyn's comments, the number of playable hours directly impacts community access to recreation. And we see that beyond physical health, team play is demonstrated to improve emotional well-being and social outcomes, including teamwork and social skills, which translates into adults who are also more likely to be active and stronger social connections. So we can see benefits for both children and adults due to additional access to play and team sports. So let's get into some of the other social categories. We can see here the higher number of hours for artificial turf options, fewer hours for natural grass, and that's true both for the time that we would expect the field to be generating revenues and also free community play. Those would both match the trends there. We can also see the impact of high heat days. It is important to note that natural grass as a natural product absorbs minimal extra heat, so it would not impact playable time as much, and it wouldn't increase as much the temperature as artificial turf. And we have information on artificial turf with crumb rubber, and we do know that does increase heat significantly, and it absorbs and retains heat due to the properties of the crumb rubber. There is no data available that we could find on artificial turf with natural infill or no infill. But we can reason that that would fall somewhere in between crumb rubber and natural grass. So definitely higher than natural grass and probably a little bit lower than crumb rubber just because of the physical properties. However, we don't have any research to back that up. So we've marked that one as no data. And then looking at some contaminants, we considered PFAS, and we know that natural grass is not a source, so it scores really well there. And with artificial turf, we find that the options research did not include PFAS in the manufacturing process. And so there are no known sources, but we can't rule them out as entirely. Also looking at microplastics, of course, not generated by natural grass, but there are some impacts with artificial turf. And so we'll get a little bit more into those in a little bit. I have a couple more detail slides to discuss those. Unfortunately, we couldn't find any research that specifically quantified microplastics impacts from artificial turf. So we sought to put the potential impact in context with other things that we know about. So let's dive a little bit deeper into that contextualization. Regarding the contaminants related to artificial turf, we found that research and health standards are generally lacking to the degree that we found satisfying. So we understand that there's some exposure. So we were trying to figure out how to express that with the lack of research that's available. So in the absence of clear information, our approach was to contextualize what is not yet known and compare it to other everyday activities to provide a sense of scale for potential exposure. And looking at the different toxics, we looked at microplastics present in both crumb rubber and turf, phthalates present in crumb rubber and turf, PAHs in crumb rubber. Again, the PFAS are not directly included in the manufacturing of turf fiber, so we didn't research that further, contextualize further. And we know that for humans, exposure is primarily through ingestion. A recent EPA study examined athletes playing on artificial turf and found no difference in levels of these contaminants as compared to athletes that were playing on natural grass. And of course, these contaminants are also important for the environment where the exposure pathways are generally through water and air. So we're going to look a little bit deeper into an example of contextualization for microplastics. So since we couldn't find any studies identifying the loss of plastic fibers in artificial turf sports fields over their lifetime, we did a very conservative estimate of the highest possible amount of plastic loss that we could reasonably assume over deterioration of the artificial grass fibers and breakage over time. And we calculated that at about 4,800 pounds per year for all 14 fields. Then we compared to an everyday activity, which is laundry. When washing clothes, synthetic fibers release microplastics into the water. And we found that our very conservative estimate was equivalent to everyone in the Eugene Springfield area washing a fleece jacket 6 times per year. So just to give some sort of equivalency. Because this is an important consideration, we recommend that the city consider additional mitigations to help reduce those impacts, such as a bioswale retention, and that can help filter out some microplastics and prevent a significant amount of those plastics from getting into the environment. It was not part of our scope to do any further research than make that recommendation. So that's something that we do recommend as a further action. So that's a little bit on the contextualization work that we did in the absence of a little bit more concrete data that we would have liked to see. So moving along, that topic kind of straddles the social and environmental. So let's go on to the environmental branch. In the environmental branch, we looked at resource consumption, greenhouse gas emissions, and ecosystem impacts. And the key differentiators that we saw here were water use, surface materials, and the contaminants that we just discussed. So in resource consumption, we looked into the tons of material that were sent to the landfill. Natural turf would not be sent to the landfill, so that is not an impact that we see in that category. And among the artificial turf options, the no infill option represented fewer tons less frequently than the other two options. This is one area where there is a bit of difference between the 3 different artificial turf options. And this is due to its extended surface life, so it lasts a little bit longer, and also the lack of infill means less to send to the landfill. Just for a little bit of context, that 560 tons every 12 years is about the same as 26 Oregon households. Water use is exclusive to natural grass, so there is no need to water artificial turf. So the water that's needed to keep the fields in prime condition for the 14 field complex is estimated at 62 million gallons of drinking water annually.
for field irrigation. And this is similar to about 2,100 Oregon residents and their annual water usage. Contaminants that we discussed are similar for social and environmental, so we got into those in a little bit more detail. It's notable that the option with the highest rate of contamination is artificial turf with crumb rubber. So the city's selection of artificial turf without infill avoids the impacts that you would see from the crumb rubber. Finally, we have the economic branch. And so knowing that it's important for the complex to have sustainable operational finances and contribute to the local economy, we found here that the key differentiators were annual revenues, operations and maintenance cost, and local economic benefit. So looking at those, we can see that annual revenues, they primarily come from field rentals, tournaments, and some food truck permits. That's a more minor category. And due to the increased number of the playable hours, the more time that the fields can be used, artificial turf offers significantly higher opportunity to capture revenues from rentals and tournaments over natural grass, and it's about 3 times more. And then natural grass also requires more maintenance, so the operational costs are higher than for artificial turf options. So that includes things like mowing, leaf blowing, painting, surface grooming, all of those different things that you would do on either surface. And then similarly, because the artificial turf offers more playtime, we also expect that it'll bring more visitors to town and result in much higher local economic benefit than natural grass. So we can see estimates around $4 million for economic benefit related to a natural or an artificial turf surface, and closer to 1.5 million for natural grass. Okay, so that is the highlight of the overall analysis and the framework. And so just kind of looking ahead, we recommend, as I mentioned, integrating bioswales as natural filters to reduce potential contamination from the artificial turf with no infill as the design advances. And then we're also expecting to see some additional regulations on chemicals used in products. You can see some of the regulations that we have in Oregon and California as examples, and we can foresee that other products like artificial turf would also be receiving similar regulations into the future. And then we've also seen voluntary innovations in the private sector, such as the new artificial turf options with recovered organic infill or no infill at all. And then we're seeing some pilots currently for recycling turf fibers at the end of their useful life, though none of those are at commercial scale, so we can't depend on them now, but hoping that they would be successful. That could potentially be an option in the future. The city can use the manufacturer that we looked into remove PFAS from their manufacturing process, and we know that the city can use that specification in procurement as a mitigation as well. So there's a lot more in the report, but I'm going to turn it back over to Carolyn to talk a little bit about the decision process.
Thanks, Tracy. That's a lot. So this analysis was really undertaken to help us understand the trade-offs, to understand the impacts and the benefits, and to help us compare these different options, and to help us make not only a transparent decision, but a well-informed decision. The report itself has so much more information in it. This was really kind of an executive summary. So know that there is much more to be found there. Regarding staff's decision-making process, I just wanted to talk briefly about that and just say that the staff team was assembled and included folks from recreation who do our athletics programming. It included our financial analysts, our ecologists, landscape architects, operations, and we sat in a room together and we We had previously reviewed the report. We described and talked about some areas where we thought we needed more research, and we asked parametrics to do some additional analysis, which does show up in this report now. But it really was a unanimous decision by staff to to go forward with this artificial herb without infill. And we sent that to our directors, the directors of Parks and Open Space and Recreation, and they affirmed that decision. Because we believe that this product will provide the best overall value for our community. We acknowledge that there are impacts. We are definitely interested in the mitigation of those impacts where at all possible. And we believe that based on the findings of this analysis, that the known benefits of providing recreational and health opportunities for this community outweigh the known impacts of using artificial turf. So that's why we made this decision, and now I think we have some time for questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Been a long road. Like you said, we first talked about this in November of 24. I have a question. I think it was briefly mentioned when we last spoke. I don't know how deep we got onto it. Basically, surely not all playable hours are created equal. Like, presumably 10 p.m. on a rainy February weekday is not as high value of a playable hour as 3 p.m. on a Sunday in July. And so I wonder, like, have you used this bronze, silver, gold framework to differentiate playable hours? And it seems like it would be a valuable lens to say, how well aligned are gold, silver, or bronze playable hours with the season during which natural turf is playable? Because that seems like surely we're not going to actually see 6 football fields and 6 baseball or softball fields fully occupied, you know, in like 3 hours from now today. But maybe in the summer. So I want to know, I think that alignment seems really important. And it seems like the critical deciding factor is playable hours, but it looks like it's just like a peanut butter spread of playable hours. And so that seems like an important question. Like, it's related, like, do we have realistic rental rates or like occupancy rates for these fields where we have playable hours as like a maximum potential and then like a technical potential and then a realistic potential, but it seems like there maybe is another D rate based on how much people tend to use playing fields, which is a good question because like if you build it, they will come, sure. But like it seems like the critical nexus here is playable hours. But it also looks like a bit of a broad brush characterization.
Yeah,
Do you want to go to?
I can
The-
speak to most of that, yeah.
Okay, great,
Awesome.
Laurel from
Yes, Laurel
Recreation.
from Rec. So right now, we have agreements, IGAs with both Bethel school districts and 4J school districts. And we share the cost and the usage of the turf fields at middle school and high schools. And then obviously we have our own city natural turf fields as well. So right now our fields are used almost every evening from, well, the schools have them until about 5 or 6, depending on the location, until 10 p.m. They're pretty packed, and Peter's been in conversations where we just met with Kid Sports and they're like, we don't have enough time. How do we get more time on these sites? So I think in terms of like what is it? The playable out, yeah, but the like practical ones, I think really it's anytime like 5 to 10 would be that. Right now we have basically the youth sports go till 9 p.m. and then our events start at 8 or 9 depending on the location. And so I think they're definitely used. People are always asking us for more time. We have rental groups because right now in our IGAs with the school districts and with the youth users, youth get access to those fields first, nonprofit youth organizations, which is awesome. But because of that, we don't even have like kind of a quantity of how many people would want to rent those fields. All we get is like the phone calls of folks that we're turning away week after week after week because we don't have space, and they can't get into lane, they can't get into William Lane. So they're constantly asking us, but we don't know what exactly, that looks like, just because we don't even have the ability.
Let me add
Yeah.
something to it. So we did a feasibility or market study back in 2017, 2018, 2016. This was a little bit of the time. And in that market study, the consultant that came in and interviewed users across the city to ask, what do you need? Would this additional access be used? And so in 2016, there was a resounding yes to that question. We're in the middle of, as Carolyn mentioned earlier, confirming those assumptions that were true in 2018 to make sure that here we are in 2025. But again, anecdotally, there's demand. It
Yeah.
is, people are really frustrated at their lack of access fields.
Yeah, and on the price point or the rentals, similar to our usage is we have a model in such that we can rent the fields, but we actually don't rent them a ton because most of our time is given to those for free nonprofit youth users. And then when we do rent, we actually split the cost with 4J, so they're getting half and we're getting half. So it's kind of hard to quantify specifically what those are.
Does it change if it's at 10 o'clock at night or
Mm-mm.
it's a
Yeah.
flat rate?
Yeah, it's a flat rate.
Was there any kind of differentiation, like, so 5 to 10 sounds like peak hours,
Mhm.
is there any peak hour? I've mentioned like a gold, silver, bronze for playable hours, is there any kind of like high traffic hours or high demand hours that were assessed?
So the high demand hours are 4 to 8 for youth users.
Yep.
I mean, I think that's probably the high demand hours, as a soccer player myself, I would
Sure.
rather not start my games at 8 o'clock.
Okay.
But if that's when the games
But that's what we
are,
do now.
that's when I play.
Right.
So, yeah, we're not concerned. We're assuming that the consultant we're working with now will confirm what was true in 2016, that, youth sports hasn't shrunk in the last 8 years. So we're pretty confident that we're not gonna have problems filling the fields.
That. Okay, sure. I just wanted to acknowledge we have Laura, Meredith, and Jan, and then, and then Jan. I saw those three. Do you know where you were in that?
I'm last.
Last, okay.
This group.
My first question is about, so the artificial turf with no fill. It sounds like that's pretty new and you don't have data on it, so that brings up a lot of questions about, temperature, players, concussions and injury, those are really connected to fill depth. And so if you have no data, it seems really hard to compare that if you chose a product that is needed. So that's kind of a flag of, I think you should definitely have the data to be able to compare all these things, and it sounds like that's missing, at least from.
I know we didn't have the data for the temperature, but did we have data for injuries?
I think we did.
I would have to go back and confirm if
Okay.
that's exactly the case.
I don't believe, when I looked, I read the
Oh, you
report,
did?
I believe you were making assumptions based on the standard
Okay.
term. So that's kind of a flag of, like, you might want to go back and look at the injuries and risk for players. And then I also just wanted to mention the PFAS, there have been communities, and we wrote this up in a committee last year, I believe, that were guaranteed with a contract of PFAS-free plastic grass, and then they tested it once it was in site and it had PFAS in it. So that's, something that I would think you would definitely want third-party testing, because manufacturers have a track record of not providing what they have even contractually agreed to give. And, that's a chemical that I don't think anybody in Eugene wants to spread all over our land right by water and gym.
You know, I will just say that, your comment about the kind of untried nature of this, kind of newer product, it's true, it's a little bit of a conundrum in that we want to kind of be on the leading edge in some ways because we want to be more, sustainable and use the new technologies, but there are some risks involved with being on that cutting edge. But we do know that the Hillsborough Hops has recently installed this, and we're so that's a minor league baseball team up in Hillsborough, and we're taking a trip up there. Some of our staff are taking a trip up there, and I think we will look into that, but from what I've read about it, it does sound like they think that there are benefits from an injury perspective to this, but we'll follow up.
Can I add one more quick thing?
Yeah.
There's also been a lot of advances in natural grass. FIFA contracted with 2 universities in the US to develop all the natural grass fields for the World Cup. And I do science journalism, so I just interviewed on Monday 2 of the scientists researching that. There's been tons of advances in natural grass fields for sports. And I know it doesn't always translate down to community scale, but I believe a lot of it does. And that's something I saw completely missed was I think like what's kind of, this sounds like this is the next step in official turf being better, but what about next step in natural grass, which has got a lot of benefits too.
Yeah, I think we assumed with the kind of highly engineered natural grass option that we were kind of using the top technology, if you want to call it that, available, in that, there's drainage underneath, there's a sand layer, there's so there may be new advances, but I'm pretty sure that, we were like using what the university uses in their natural grass fields, which are really highly maintained. But interested in finding if there are other technologies out there, especially related to drainage.
It's mowing that the new stuff.
Okay,
I can send you off.
mowing, okay, yeah, I think the challenge in our climate is around drainage. So.
Thank you.
I really appreciated, Alexi, the question that you asked about those playable hours, because I had similar confusion around that and just the differentiations of, when folks would actually be wanting to be out there. And one of the things that really raised for me is the concern about summer heat. That seems like the time when people are really going to want to be out there and when there's going to be the most demand. And if we're losing that because of, we're creating these heat islands, that seems like a big problem. And then just that heat island effect impacting the community around it, I think is something that really needs to be strongly considered.
And I know for the playable for summer hours is right now, like most of the youth seasons don't play in the summer. So like kids sports and LYSA. And so a lot of it is already structured kind of with the school year, those 9 months. Where during the summers, the community has all of in our split of time, the community gets the time in the summer and we don't often give it out to people because there isn't quite a need and desire for it in the summers as you would think, which is,
So if we're wanting it to be a resource to the community and we're kind of negating their usage in the summer, that also could be a problem.
I think it's equal, like grass or artificial. The seasons are the seasons for youth, but there would be more of a draw for like tournaments and things like that. Which Medford has similar, and they have 70 tournaments this year. I think on 48 out of the 52 weekends. So, yeah.
Thank you.
We've probably all heard about the toxic impacts in Georgia with the carpet manufacturing business, which is a big issue right now.
With the what? Excuse me.
Carpet manufacturing in Georgia is huge, and there's tremendous contamination and people dying from cancers and stuff like that. So you had manufacturing up there, but you didn't address manufacturing, and I think that would be something that should be of interest, is what are the impacts on the community, because that's a social impact and economic impact as well. The communities where any plastic products are being manufactured, I think is a triple bottom line issue to be concerned with. I'm not saying I'm opposed to it, I'm just
Yeah.
asking that question because it was not covered
But you're
here.
talking about the communities where
Where
the
this
turf is
is,
being
yeah, exactly,
manufactured.
like this carpet is manufactured in Georgia, right? It doesn't impact us, but it impacts the people in Georgia. Secondly, bioswales as filters for microplastics, I don't think is a good. Bioswales don't filter plastics, so I think there has to be pre-filtering. Bioswales are good for like oils and, kind of those kinds of things, but microplastics will remain in the bioswale. They don't get filtered out by the plants, and so there needs
have
to
to
be
consider-
something more than that. But I do agree that it probably would retain the plastics near in the bioswale, but what happens over time? So those are my questions.
Thank you.
Thanks. I have a couple of things too. First of all, I just want to make sure if I was understanding this correctly, it's that the use of the engineered grass was considered that in terms of playable hours, that it was not available entirely from October to March. Is that correct? Seemed like I read that in there and I thought,
The natural grass?
yeah, the natural grass with, we keep thinking that. Grass.
November.
That highly engineered was not, it just wasn't available.
In the winter, yeah.
I found that super surprising because I think people use natural grass fields as they are even not highly engineered, right? Maybe for that intensive of use, but I was thinking that highly engineered would make them more available, but it sounds like it doesn't make much of a difference. So I just found that surprising. I wanted to see if I was understanding that correctly, if you could shed any more light on that, because I found that really disappointing. I thought we were gonna be able to get something better out of that option. I did have a question about this new turf. That it was similar to yours, that if we don't have a lot of experience with it, I understand wanting to, take advantage of something new that maybe is a better middle ground or something, but I know that when the artificial turf first came out and had no infill of any kind, there were a lot of injuries, and people say it just felt like, a little bit of something on top of a concrete floor. So I think depending upon what goes under it, would make a difference as well.
That's true.
But I think it's just something that we need to, be careful, look at carefully before we do that. And I just wanted to also get back and acknowledge Karen's comments about the transportation impacts that we didn't talk about at all. And I guess if you're wanting to develop a facility that's an attractor, that's going to be a factor. But how does that, seems like at least it needs to be acknowledged and quantified somehow, and acknowledge and say that, yes, we see that this is here and we're making this choice anyway because X, Y, Z, rather than just ignoring it.
I think is it in the report?
Yeah, there's some analysis of the potential traffic demand for our greenhouse gases.
We just didn't touch on it tonight.
It wasn't one of the largest impacts, and it wasn't something that showed that really fed into the decision-making process as a key differentiator, which is why we highlighted tonight.
Okay.
I just have one quick.
I think Laura was first and then you, sorry about that.
I just want to bring up the microplastics. It kind of rubbed me the wrong way to read, like, oh, there's all this pollution from laundry. Therefore, it felt like, and I know you didn't say this, but it felt like, oh, therefore it's okay for us to make all this microplastic pollution. And they're completely separate. Like, just because laundry is making a lot of pollution, that's not good. It's getting in the river, it goes to the ocean and the food chain. I mean, it's getting back in our bodies. There's nothing good about that. Just because this field is going to make less than that, I feel like they're completely separate. So I would just want you to acknowledge, like, yes, this plastic grass makes microplastic pollution, period. This is how much we estimate. It's not connected to the amount of pollution going into our laundry. So just maybe I don't know if that rubbed anyone else the wrong way, but it just felt like it was being excused because our laundry makes more than it. And I feel like they have nothing to do with each other. They both are not good for the environment.
Point taken. Our desire was to try to kind of show scale instead of just saying, yes, there's microplastics, but to kind of show the scale of the microplastics, not to say, oh, well, we do it here, so this is fine, but just to kind of provide that. But okay.
Jan?
Oh,
I think it was you.
well, I just wanted to follow up on the newness of the product, and I'm not opposed to new things, but I think there's a financial risk for the city to be, cutting edge, and I think I would, before, selecting it, really research that and get guarantees or, whatever historical information. I think from an economic standpoint for the city, it could be a big impact.
I appreciate that, and we'll definitely be doing that, and we know that there are a number of additional fields being installed in Oregon, Washington, and California, I think this coming summer. And since we're not planning on phase 1 construction until 2029, we do have some time to kind of do that research and see how they're playing.
And I think soccer fields would take a bigger hit than baseball.
I agree.
There it is. Just a clarifying question on the traffic impacts that you mentioned. Was it just greenhouse gas emissions that you were looking at for like that total number, or was there also a look at local air quality and the effects on folks who live immediately adjacent?
We did also look at local air toxics. Yeah. There's more detail in there if you have any other questions after.
Alexi?
I just want to build on something Laura said about the microplastics. The comparison, the slides showed washing a fleece 6 times a year. The report has 1/3 of what's released by local residential laundry, and I think that's intended to be total, right? So that's perhaps the amount of estimated plastic in our laundry is the same as washing a fleece 6 times a year. But they're different comparisons. I think maybe what Laura was responding to in part, some of this is like the assessment of, the charf options release. What I'm seeing on the report is less than 1/3 of what's released by local residential laundry. Or for Crum, less than 3.5% of current tire pollution from vehicle traffic. Those are not direct comparisons. They're framed as it's less than this other thing, as opposed to this is the amount of emissions we're dealing with. It's about the same as X. It's like maybe it's the less than characterization that makes it look like greenwashing, or like, hey, this is fine, it's smaller than this other thing. Also, my understanding is laundry is actually one of our larger sources of microplastics into the water stream, which isn't really mentioned here. It's like it's compared to laundry. If you're not aware that laundry is a major source of microplastics in our community, then that seems probably fine. You're like, I do laundry all the time. Sometimes I wash my fleece. I too sometimes wear it's covered in horsehair right now, but like, I'm gonna have to wash it at some point, and there will be microplastics. But that is, I think maybe the context is missing, because it says it's compared to laundry, which is something we all do, but there's not a note that that is a large source of microplastics. And then this is 1/3 of that large source,
Right.
you know, conservative estimate, we don't really know. But it, you know, 6,000 kilograms of microplastics a year in Eugene Springfield from laundry. This is about 1/3 of that. So 2 metric tons of microplastics coming from the sports field, like that seems like a significant amount. It also doesn't go to the Metropolitan Water Treatment Plant. It's in this park, and so it's a much more concentrated semi-point source emission, which you can mitigate with a bioswale, and then it like gums up the bioswale with microplastics, which is maybe fine or maybe not, but it acts more like a point source at 2 metric tons of microplastics per year, which is seems high. But so I think maybe that the way this is being characterized in the report looks a little bit can be read as a little bit not quite impartial because of the less than characterization.
We'll look at that. See if we can even have that.
So we have Devin, so we are a little over time. I'd like to get comments from Laura and Devin. Do we have a motion to extend the meeting?
I think let's just keep going and
See what
happens, yeah.
But
yeah, we'll
Devin, I
take
don't
last few
know
comments.
if you were before Laura. or
Devin
Devin's
should go. I've already-
okay. Devin.
I'll be quick. I just wanted to point out that was one of my main things too, and to support what Alexi just said, because I've been working with like Hatfield Marine Science Center and their laundry education microfiber and microplastics exhibit they're putting up right now, which is kind of timely. But I really think that's super true, and that if you're trying to contextualize something, it has to be in a context that someone actually understands the results of. Like you can say, to your point, Alexi, right, that it's 6 fleeces or whatever you want to say, but like what is the impact of that is not at all described. It's just, oh, it's like this, but then it's left at that. So it leaves it to the reader to understand like what's a lot and what's a little, as far as microplastics being released into the environment. It's sort of just like a flat number. It has no meaning, truly. It's just like, yes, I do laundry, or, you know, but it isn't like, I don't think people know necessarily what's a lot or what's a little of microplastics being released into the environment. I even think the commission probably doesn't fully, you know, I mean, we think it's bad, but you know what I mean? Like, the context really isn't there. So I just wanted to sort of reiterate that and point that out, that I get the real life connection, but I don't know if like that makes any difference.
Good point.
Laura will be the last.
Just quickly bringing up the baseball fields, you know, on Monday, today I know a lot more about natural grass fields than I did on Monday, because I interviewed these 2 experts working on the FIFA sports fields. So what they were saying too is like when you get to other sports like baseball, it's barely played on the grass. Like the players are so far spread out. So that's a place you could really consider natural grass, because the game is played in the dirt. It's not played on the grass. There's very few people, so you don't have the same impact. Like soccer, you know, lots of high impact, the ball has to roll, like there's so many differences between soccer and baseball, but the environment's gonna feel all those microplastics and all the toxins and the facilities that make the turf, and then the recycling, really it's just getting melted back down into crude oil, and so those communities, you know, there's all of the impacts, the externalities with a fossil fuel product. So that's something that you can think about, is maybe baseball doesn't need that high use because people are really spread out and it's supposed to stay on the dirt.
And this recommendation is specific to the soccer fields, because the baseball, softball field will be in a separate phase. But we do anticipate they probably would have some component of artificial turf. So, but that's something that we'll look at when that phase comes along. Good point.
One last quick thing here.
Similarly, really quick, I think it's an interesting idea to consider a partial or a phased approach where you say, maybe if you're talking about building 3 fields right away, maybe 1 and 2 are artificial and natural, and you see. If you really need peak usage in the off season, can we get away with half as much artificial? And when we're at peak usage, like, I don't know. We don't really have a heat map of high demand hours, but it may not need to be an all or nothing solution, is my point.
Thank you. I just want to express our gratitude for the amount of attention and care that you all put into this presentation and this research and coming here to hear response. We are very, very grateful and appreciative of that.
Thank you.
Sorry, we have to rush. Moving on here.
And thank you for the input
And thank you all for
Thank you
your
for
comment.
work.
Yeah.
Thank you.
We're a little bit behind, but I guess we'll move. Do we both extend the meeting?
I think that's maybe, I think we may need in about 5 minutes looking at this, then we can maybe see how it goes.
Okay.
Unless you want to extend that.
I have a topic related to this, but not, that might take 2 minutes.
So why don't we go ahead and, should we hear a motion to, extend the meeting?
I moved to extend 10 minutes.
Second. All in favor?
Thank you.
Technically, council updates are next. Does your idea fit now or?
It kind of fits.
Okay.
I feel uncomfortable having our name on that document because as it's in the acknowledgements as contributed, and I don't think we contributed to the content. I mean, I know we contributed to what was talked about in there. I feel like we would be better listed in the acknowledgements with all the huge list. I personally have like a lot more things I could say about that report that I believe are inaccurate and different, you know, I have a lot of kind of critiques of it. But my overarching thing is I don't personally want the commission's name on the top because that feels like we contributed to the content, the creation, which we didn't at all. We kind of did some of the like what to think about, but we didn't have any, you know, input into what. So my ask is that our name is not.
To pull it off the information contributors section.
We put us in the bottom. There's we're on the top and then there's like acknowledgement at the bottom. So like long list of every source there, and we could do that big long list.
I mean, do we want to, I guess my question is. Do we want to put, there's a lot here, there's a lot of comments, a lot of stuff going on. I mean, is this an appropriate place to like write a letter of response requesting such a thing, maybe suggesting a different type of mitigation for microplastics if bioswales aren't, or suggesting they test for PFAs even if they're, I mean, is there more follow-up to be done here from the commission in respect to this, or what are your all thoughts?
How final is this? It sounds, they said, we made the decision. Are there any changes possible anyway? I mean, I don't know where we are in the process.
I mean, what I'm inferring from this is that the timeline is still quite far away and that they're gonna continue to assess as they get closer. And not to say that they won't keep this decision, but like, is there an appropriate time in the, like, it feels like we have some time to craft something thoughtful, you know, that they could file away with this, that would also encourage them to follow up on some of these like key pieces.
I mean, it seemed, I would agree with what you said, and I think they're obviously interested in what we have to say. They've come here twice to talk to us, so I think action focus with the acknowledgement on our part that like it might not result in, you know, reversing a decision that's previously been made, but in terms of moving forward, actions that can be taken that we're seeing where we put our name on the report being obviously one, if that's a resounding feeling from everyone, but also actions like suggesting additional research into what would pre-filter microplastics, suggesting that even if we do get this product that we test for the PFA others potential like actionable suggestions, suggesting that we reassess something before we go into phase 2 where the baseball fields are, so that could be something. And, I'm interested in hearing people's thoughts. Yeah. Oh, Devin, sorry. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
Okay.
No.
No, it's fine. I just think there's a lot to say about this and we don't have time to say it right now. And so I really would not, after all the time we've spent on this particular topic, I'd be a little sad if we decided everything in 1 minute right now. Is there a way or to get this on next month's agenda for like maybe a 15-minute conversation? So we can actually go home, think about what we saw, reevaluate our thoughts or get them together and then come back as a group and kind of discuss what we want to do and what's maybe by then we also maybe be able to know what's possible for us to do. As far as our name on the thing and how many people want to agree with that and all that kind of stuff. I just don't feel like we can make those kind of decisions right in this moment.
How does that feel, Laura?
That sounds good, but I also want to acknowledge we never agreed to have our name put on it. Someone just did that. Just want to put that out there. Like we never talked about it.
Okay.
So valid, yeah.
It does sound like we need a little bit more
Yeah,
time to let this absorb and reflect, so I don't know if we need to just put it on the,
That's a decision you can make
okay. Yeah,
as the chair of what the agenda is, so.
let's do it.
Okay. Sounds like great. Thank you.
So my question is.
Yep. Oh, yeah, sorry.
Do we need to somehow flag that for them, Danielle, that we're intending to get back to them? So, I mean, what is gonna happen with the report? I agree that it sounds like they're not gonna be doing anything, in construction anytime soon. But if we wanna have feedback on what the report does and doesn't say about us or other things we wanna say them, do we need to?
I'll follow up with Carolyn because I'm not totally sure what her timing is on like when this report is going public. I know
Right.
there is like the cover letter that was sent to you with the final recommendation. I believe that's going to city council, but I'm not sure when. And so I will come back with that information before next month.
I just know that construction documents can start now, so things start rolling once they say goes.
Yeah.
It's good to let them know that we want to respond or write something.
Yeah, do you want to say something? Okay.
I don't think this is going to city council. Like, I don't.
Well, I don't think council's gonna have a decision, but I think it will be a memo sent to city council about what.
Sort of more of an FYI.
Yeah.
Thank you all. This is a lot. Appreciate everyone's perspectives. Thank you. I guess we should move forward with our council updates.
I will be very fast. The new city manager, Jenny, is gonna start April 15th. So that's gonna be her first day. Just to kind of put that out there since that was unknown last time we were here. A lot of what council's been talking about has been like housing and budget stability and our operating agreements of like, what's the order of the agenda? So, from a sustainability perspective, I'll say the two things that like leap up is that we're gonna be talking about home energy scores in the very near future. So keep an eye out for that. And then the other thing is that we did have a public hearing, yesterday, I guess it was yesterday, regarding the public first sort of step in the public health standards project, and then we're gonna be doing this theoretically, maybe we'll make a decision, maybe we'll just talk about it more in a couple of weeks. And so really what that is looking at is not that whole big question of what types of public health standards should we have, but sort of a very narrow piece of that is surrounding what type of notification and reporting development in industrial zones needs to give to environmental regulators in advance to try and increase that coordination with the environmental regulators. Kind of looking at that the beginning rather than the end. But there's the recommendation that came from the planning commission surrounding this was
a 4-3 split vote. So I think there's gonna be continued discussion about what the right level there is. That's it.
Thank you. Staff updates?
Okay, so, yeah, a few updates. I'm going to council on Monday with the home energy score engagement results and research results. And 2 weeks later on March 9th, I'll be going back. And at that point, council may decide to take action to direct staff to draft an ordinance. So if you want to watch those sessions, they'll be on the website where you can find the link. Related to the commission, next month, Jody Trendler from Transportation Planning is coming to talk about sidewalk repair policy and funding. And so I just wanted to use this time to capture any questions that you may have ahead of time about that topic, so I can share those with her.
Any questions? And they can be emailed to you.
You can email them or share them now.
Wait, is this the policy that like if the sidewalk is like damaged in front of your property, you are the person to fix it? Okay.
I don't think it's about like changing that policy, but it's sort of like that has, I don't really know what, like how that's enforced. And I know that that's been a big challenge and source of frustration for a lot of community members. So I think the city is working on like how to sort of massage that. So that's sort of the extent to what I know.
Gotcha.
Oh, yes, Devin.
So, what I'd be interested in hearing is, with all the ADA compliance and things that the city needs to participate in now, how that's gonna affect individual homeowners for their sidewalk, costs. And it's actually kind of incredibly substantial. For a lot of people in Southeast Neighbors, we actually had a program for a while, and it continues to help neighbors understand, like go and look at their sidewalks and say, hey, this is something that needs to be repaired or not kind of situation, and help them turn back vegetation and stuff like that as well. And it to help make their areas that they're responsible for more ADA compliant. So yeah, my big question is, how can the city of Eugene expect homeowners to make their sidewalks ADA compliant? I think the cost, it's just cost prohibitive, and I don't fully know that particular route. And I would like to know the answer to the question you said it's not about, which is, are there ideas out there about changing the way those sidewalks are funded, the repairs, I mean.
Meredith?
Does this include discussions around like tree removal when roots are impacting sidewalks? Probably.
Yeah, that's it.
I would imagine that, yeah, a lot of the repair issues. So
maybe, so like, is your question like, are there rules around protecting trees when a sidewalk is being?
yeah, or just how like those two pieces are managed
Okay.
when, yeah, we have goals as a city around certain amounts of tree coverage and street trees. And then we also have these conflicting needs sometimes around ADA compliance.
That's a good question.
Although I don't think it has to be exclusive. Sometimes a tree has to be removed, but it should be replaced by maybe 2 trees instead of 1.
All right.
Okay, great. And then my other thing that I just wanted to share is just, so it's February, this fiscal year for the commission ends in June. And so I just wanted to give you a sort of a preview of what's to come. So March is going to be sidewalks. April is going to be Franklin Boulevard transformation, the Franklin Boulevard transformation plan. Transportation plan. So that's another transportation topic. And then May and June, it's looking like those are both going to be like community perspectives panel conversations. So one is going to be with youth, and one is going to be with businesses. So the Education and Outreach Committee is working on those. Basically what that means is there's 2 topics that were in the work plan that might not make it into the fiscal year. One being the local applications of geothermal energy. which I think is okay, because one of the presenters I was thinking about, the staff person left, and it's just not really materializing into much right now. The other one is street tree projects. That one I may be able to squeeze in, since it's a topic that was really robust last year, that may be able to be squeezed in into like a shorter presentation side by side with a different one, but it might not be, so, that's about it.
Oh, yeah.
We got this letter from David something or other, about the energy issue around the future. And I was wondering if how that impacts us. I mean, we read the letter, but there's a huge topic behind that letter. So what happens next?
I mean, it was submitted as public comment. Nothing really happens with that. If the commission would like to take that up as an issue and explore that topic further, you can decide to include it in your work plan next year and potentially invite Northwest Natural to come speak. You could invite our other utility to come share maybe. Other options, you could write a letter to council. Council isn't really, it's not really within their jurisdiction to like address that type of stuff, so I'm not sure that would be super effective. That's what I can think of, unless someone else has a different idea for how the commission can take that issue up, if that's something you want to do.
Let's see.
I think that becomes one of the data points or resources to reference when we're in the working groups, for example, talking about sustainable buildings. This year's sustainable buildings is really more about like embodied carbon policy and so on and things like that. We have previously really focused on resiliency as a topic, and that was kind of grid resiliency, less so gas grid resiliency, which is a different topic. It was really about electric grid resiliency, but there's a little bit of the other of gas and stuff too. But I think it's like, this is a resource, a data source that has come out with funding from a bunch of gas utilities and some electric utilities in the region. And I think David wanted to point to it so that we know it exists, basically.
Let me give everyone a chance to talk, but we have 2 to 3 minutes left and we still have a few things on the agenda, so.
I was just wondering if we need to plan in our agendas between now and the end of the year, the reports coming back from the committees, and if that's factored into the agendas.
Yeah, I think that'll probably happen in the May and June meeting topics, meeting agendas.
Quickly, I know we have commissioner updates and updates from committees. We have a little bit of an action item from the Education and Outreach Committee. I just wanted to give a little bit of time for. I'll hand it over to Lily.
Oh, right now.
Yeah,
Okay,
sure.
Yeah. So like Danielle was saying, since we're planning on having those two panel, like basically we're inviting panelists to come to our May and June meetings. We're hoping to ask the commission to brainstorm some questions or, topics for them to focus on. So again, the two topics are youth perspectives on climate action and business perspectives on climate action. So, like some organizations we brainstormed to reach out to include like student organizations from the University of Oregon, like local like student or youth organizing groups, or climate action groups like Our Future, and then Eugene young professionals through the Chamber of Commerce, other local businesses like the Racks, and yeah, so just a bit of background, and we're hoping to get some questions for those.
Now that we don't have much time, is it possible to just email the questions to us and we'll kind of and we might have to whittle them down to about 3 for the actual panel session, just so we have the time to hear from everybody. But if you all think of questions you'd like to hear from these groups, go ahead and email them in and we'll work on them. And then we have 1 minute left. Sorry, the other 2 committees, is there reports that are pressing?
No, we can do it next time for the building.
Okay, sure. We have a.
Yep, we're good.
Okay, we are time. Simon said, thank you all so much. You're amazing.
Thank you guys. Good to see you guys. Sorry I couldn't be there.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Right.